Good morning, Sarah. Welcome to the podcast.
Good evening.
So
um,
what time is it there?
it is 6 o'clock here.
Okay, I didn't get you up at like 3 o'clock in the morning or
Yeah,
something. Okay,
no,
okay,
not
good.
at the end of the day, so it's all good.
Because I was like, you look very refreshed for late into the evening. So good. So nice to meet you. You are my first guest that I've ever had in Ireland. So welcome. Tell us
Thank
about
you.
what part of Ireland. So I'm in San Diego, California, in the United States.
Mhm.
What part of Ireland are you in, and what is it like there?
Okay, so I'm in County Donegal. So this would be the most kind of northern county in Ireland. So we're right near the ferry top of Ireland.
Okay.
So we're along the Atlantic coast. So it's beautiful. The scenery is beautiful. The beaches are beautiful. It's very wild at times, and it's given the name to the Wild Atlantic Way.
Uh-huh.
Um, yeah, I definitely recommend
Have
to
you
visit.
always lived there? Is that like your native home?
Yeah, yeah. So I am from a town called Moville, which is about 30-minute drive from where I'm currently living and working at the minute. And yeah, I went to England, to Liverpool, to study my degree. But I came back home now.
Well, I'm so happy to be acquainted with you. I found you on social media as we all find each other, and I am extremely curious about what mental health looks like in Ireland. I'm very familiar with it here, and I've had a few guests from Canada, but I haven't had any from Europe. And so tell me, what do you have to do or what's involved becoming a mental health provider in Ireland?
Well, to become a mental health counsellor in Ireland, it is usually through a degree format, so an
Okay.
honours degree, usually about 3-4 years of studying, and that includes a placement as well. Um, Unfortunately, in Ireland, it's not fully regulated yet. If you were a nurse or a teacher, there was more of
Mm.
a regulating body. And the downside of this really is, sometimes people may do shorter courses and work as a mental health counsellor or practitioner then.
Wow.
But I think they are working towards regulating it. Uh, Counselling has really taken off in Ireland. I think from my own perspective, after COVID, so I opened up my practice in 2016, and definitely after the lockdown and COVID here, more people started to reach out for support and for help, which has really helped, yourself to normalize mental health, to normalize talking about it, to normalize opening up about our feelings. Um, Us as Irish people would often, keep a lot of stuff to ourselves. So if somebody asks, how are you getting on, or how are you, the most common response would be, I'm grand, which means I'm
Mm.
fine.
Mm.
So there definitely is more people and more men reaching out. Um, a lot more younger people too, from the age of 16 upwards. They are definitely reaching out and seeking that support or just that conversation, which is absolutely fantastic because you know yourself, the younger you are when you learn these techniques and these strategies to help with your mental health, the easier it is in adulthood, because as we get older, our mental health does become more fragile. So it's great, but I did laugh the last day because a lot of young people now coming to counselling or reaching out, they're calling it therapy.
Ah,
So obviously that's coming from the States over.
okay. So it's
They
called
have a
it's
therapist.
called counseling in Ireland. You don't call it
Yeah,
therapy.
we would call it counselling, and I would be a counsellor.
Okay.
But definitely younger people now are calling it therapy, and
Oh.
I'm going to see my therapist, and they're completely fine and open and confident, which is fantastic to see. So there definitely, from my perspective, has been a shift in normalizing and decreasing the negative stigma that once would have been around mental health in Ireland.
That's so good to
And
hear.
social media has had such a huge impact as well. Do you know
Yeah.
yourself? It's everywhere at the minute, which is great.
I love that you're sort of like a pioneer there then. You're kind of breaking new ground and breaking some stigmas
Yeah.
and
Well, I think there's always been counselors, there's always been that mental health support available. There definitely is more therapists or more counselors now. There is more people going back to college and studying it. And with that, I suppose everybody's playing a role. You're even just having a conversation with your friend or going for a walk is an act of counseling in itself, and
Mm,
definitely more
yes.
people are opening up to it, which is fantastic.
I love it. I'm so excited to have you here. And I could probably just listen to you talk with your accent the whole podcast and feel like this was a good experience for me. So cool. All
Well,
right.
Thank
So
God has been voted as, I think, the best accent in Ireland. So there you go.
oh, okay. Well, good. So I brought the very best to the podcast. Fantastic, Sarah.
The
All right.
best
So
accent.
I want to start with a quote that I saw on your website, and I want you to maybe talk a little bit about what inspires you about the quote and why it's so meaningful. So it's by Carl Jung, and it's I am not what happened to me. I am what I chose to become or choose to become. Tell me about why that quote resonates with you.
I like Carl Jung. I like his work and his studies into symbolism and into the subconscious. I I personally believe that you know things happen to all of us, but at the end of the day, we all have a choice in what we're going to do with it. Yes, it is really difficult at times, and all we want to do is maybe take to our bed and just try to avoid or escape through some form of instant gratification. But ultimately, we have a choice. We can choose what has happened to us to make our lives more productive, to use it as a form of motivation to work towards our goals, or we can give into it. Um, I always remember whilst I was on placement, I had a client, and he was an older gentleman. He was 70. And I always remember him saying to me that everybody in life will get a whack. And or if you're lucky, you'll get one, or you could get a few whacks in life. And as simple as he has put that statement, it is very, very true. But it is ultimately what you choose to do with that. Do you choose to grow from it, or do you choose to stagnate and let it rule your life? And
Beautiful.
yeah, we have a choice.
I think that's a nice segue into some of the things that I wanted to talk to you about today, as I also view, similar as you, what we choose to think about and how we choose to view our thoughts is also something that we have a choice about, right? And you do a lot of work about our thoughts and how we respond to our thoughts and how much value we place on our thoughts and how to change our thoughts, right? So tell me from your perspective, why do we think the way that we do? How do we develop our thought patterns?
I think we develop our thought patterns obviously from childhood. And, for example, in my client work, so the majority of my clients are female. And if we talk and we take a conversation right back to their childhood, to our formative years, we will have often have had an early childhood experience of a negative comment or being made to feel embarrassed or shamed. And then this will form what is called like a limiting belief that we hold towards ourselves. So,
Mm,
say, for example, you were in class in school and you were asked to stand up to recite the timetables, and you made a mistake. If the teacher or if a fellow classmate or whoever passed judgment, then that child would possibly internalize that comment, and it would become a belief that they would hold in themselves, such as I'm not good enough. So therefore, every other time in their life that they have a similar feeling, that feeling is triggered, that memory is triggered, and another layer is added onto it. So what started as a little seed will continue to grow, and sometimes that can come out through our behaviors and in our responses to our reactions to certain situations. And, such as people pleasing or a need to prove ourselves or continuously setting very high expectations for that external validation. So sometimes that is actually the feeder of the thoughts. As you know, thoughts are simply habits, and the more we think a certain way, the more we are embedding that thought into our mindset, and the more we believe it. And our thoughts are not facts, and they do bring along feelings, often negative feelings, which then does change how we behave or how we react in a situation, further feeding into the limiting belief. And you just keep going around and
So
around.
what I hear you saying is we start with a thought that's probably something we've done over and over and over again from a very early age, and we're not even thinking about it anymore. And that
Yeah.
generates a feeling. And then
Yeah.
we respond to the feeling, and maybe we're not recognizing that, whoa, back the train up. It just started as a thought, and we have the ability to validate the thought, dismiss the thought, challenge the thought,
Yeah.
eat up the thought, right? Or not give it any value. Because if we don't break the thought, this well-worn habit of like going into the emotion and then doing a behavior in response to the emotion is going to be a constant outcome.
Exactly. And
Okay.
then we get stuck in a rut, or we get stuck in a mode of behavior that is no longer, serving us. It's not healthy. It's not good.
Yeah.
And it spills out into our day-to-day life. It spills out into our relationships with other people and our relationship with ourselves. And, with therapy or with counseling, it's very helpful to identify those thought patterns and to recognize where they stem from, and then to do the work on breaking it and creating a new thought habit. And, as humans, we are programmed to have a negative thought first. But, a negative thought is not a fact, and it's not necessarily about replacing the negative thought with a positive thought. It's about creating a realistic thought, because ultimately our mind will always believe something if we have got evidence or facts to support it.
Mhm.
So, like,
You're saying about an
circling.
unconscious bias. So you said we're kind of pre-programmed to have a negative thought, which
Yeah.
is a survival technique, right? Like, so because
Yeah.
somebody listening is like, wait, what did, why? Because
Oh,
a
so
survival of the
yeah,
tribe, right? I have to know
of
what you think
course,
about me.
preempt. Yeah, be prepared for worst case scenario. Yeah,
Mhm.
but we never really stop to ask ourselves, well, what evidence have I got to say that this negative thought is actually going to happen?
Mm, mhm.
Often they are irrational fears. The reason we will feel them so strongly is because they feed off our worst fear. So therefore, that that has a knock-on effect on our stress response, on our fight or flight or freeze response to the situation, because we are fearful that this thought that we have just had is actually going to happen. So therefore, we respond to the thought. If we catch the thought, and if we challenge the thought, and if we ask, do we actually have evidence that supports it, we can break it down and we can create a realistic thought that we can back up with evidence and facts.
So what you're saying is, and the way that I challenge it is that I actually hold it to a validity or truth test. Like if my fear is I'm going to get hit by a train, right? And so I never want to drive my car over the train tracks, and I'm like, I can't go into that part of town. There's train tracks there. Like that's kind of the talking, the catastrophizing, right? And
Yeah.
so how would I challenge those thoughts or those beliefs if I was someone that had that belief system?
Well, I suppose, if you're driving over the train tracks, like, is it safe to do so? So if the answer to that, then it is safe to do so, because when you're going to be driving over them, there'll be barricades down. So therefore, it's safe to drive the car,
Mm, mhm.
and it's sometimes about stepping outside of your own comfort zone and challenging yourself, because you know yourself, if you don't step into what makes you feel uncomfortable, you're not going to grow, and you're going to stay living in that fear. It's like a really simple example: a child having an irrational fear of a monster under their bed.
Mm.
We as adults know that there's no such thing as monsters, but that small child 100% believes in it, and their fear to them is so real. So what we do as adults or parents or caregivers is we'll turn the light on and we'll check under the bed, and we will give them reassurance that is based in fact, because if you look under the bed, there's no monster there. As adults, our fears will grow with us. So sometimes our most irrational fears is just like a child's fear of a monster under the bed, if that makes sense.
It does,
It's
because
a
you
random
said,
metaphor.
no, I love it, because what it ties back to is what you were saying earlier is we develop our irrational fears as a child. So we're still very childlike in the ways that we view our fears or our areas of growth, because I'm trying to reframe and make it something positive, not something negative happening to you, right? So let's bring that on home then. So if I'm in a relationship, because that's what people care about a lot, our relationships are primary and it's not the physical driving over the train tracks or a monster, I can sort that out with something physical. But if I'm
Yeah,
in a relationship and I've had a few bad relationships or ones that didn't go the way that I hoped, I might have a belief system or a fear that I shouldn't get into another relationship because I'm not good at them, right? People are going to hurt
exactly.
me. I'm not
Yep.
going to be loved. I'm not going to survive this. It's going to be horrible. So that's that childlike part of us, right? We think we're being an adult, but we're like, no, look at the evidence of like the bad relationships I've been in. But that's really that childhood fear that I'm not going to survive this if something goes wrong, or it's just a matter of time until somebody figures out that I'm not a good partner and they're going to leave me. How would I
Exactly.
challenge that, Sarah?
So I would say with that, instead of focusing on the relationship with another partner or another person, you start off by focusing on the relationship with yourself.
Something I have control over.
Exactly. And you start to focus on, say, like your patterns of the type of person that you're attracted to. Why is it that you're attracted to those traits? Does those traits or that personality remind you of somebody in your life, in your past?
Mm,
Somebody that you never received closure from, for example. So therefore you are subconsciously always seeking out somebody similar to either care for or, to have that closure from. A lot of the
mm,
time, the partners that we seek out often can say a lot more about ourselves. What we are seeking, what we need, what void are we looking to fill. So, like, the most important relationship is the one you have with yourself. So sometimes it is about sitting with that and unwrapping it and really getting to know yourself and
I
what
find,
it is that you're looking for, what it is, because it's not healthy if you keep
yeah.
repeating similar patterns that are causing you harm. So what is it that you're trying to fix or to
Mm.
fill?
I find that clients are often mirroring in the people that they choose the things that they're struggling with in their own life. That's what you're
Yeah,
saying, right? Is like if I worry that I'm not enough, I might attract somebody that treats me like I'm not enough, or I'm attracted to that challenge because I think that if I can get that person to validate me, then that truly means that I'm okay. Versus internally being like, what do I need to be okay? And if that person is treating me as if I don't have value, they're not a good catch for me. They're not a good match for me because they're reinforcing the insecurities that I already have that I should be working through on my own.
exactly. It's seeking out that external validation, isn't it? Rather than working on the internal validation.
Mm,
And when somebody's self-worth is low, it is easier just to focus on the external, to focus on that person, telling you or making you feel if you are good enough or not good enough. And if you don't feel good enough, then you will try harder. And this is why a lot of people who have had relationships like this, if they meet somebody who is a very secure person, because I think that is the number one trait that people should be seeking in a relationship, is a secure person above
Okay.
all else.
Okay.
Um, they'll have enough internal validation in themselves. And the person whose self-worth is quite low often really struggles with receiving genuine love and genuine care. It's
Mm.
very uncomfortable because it's not what they're used to.
Yeah.
And it's very challenging for them to work through that sometimes.
So you write on your site about kind of building a toolkit of positive coping skills so that we can tackle these big things, because these are not easy. Like you and I are bantering it around like, just do this, just do that. That's super easy. It's
Yeah,
not
and it's
easy.
all we're talking on a level. Every single person who comes to you or who comes to me, they're coming with a whole set of unique stuff and life experiences. So it is, like that, like the toolkit that you mentioned. I would often talk about that in workshops that I would do. But it's very basic. It's on a line. It's
Sure.
not really going anything too deep, because that's more one-on-one work. And I think that's where you need to be careful as well
Mm.
when you're working with groups of people. Is just not for it to be too triggering.
You're trying to bring education. We call it psychoeducation here. It's like if it's never been on your radar, sometimes it's enough for it to like be on your radar. We don't have to like tear it all apart and disintegrate
No,
it. You have to
no,
start getting familiar with the concept so that you're okay with that. And then the next step is that you start figuring out what your triggers are, what your coping skills are.
exactly. And then that's where then, like you say, it's a starting point. It's learning these strategies, it's learning the language, it's educating yourself. And for a lot of people, then that's when they may reach out and talk to somebody and seek that one-on-one support.
So give us one of your favorite coping skills. I love all the things that I've seen that you talk about and that you do, but like what's something for somebody listening right now who's identifying with this that you're like, here's something that you can try today or this week.
I find for me personally, definitely challenging the thoughts. If I'm feeling, more anxious or just a little bit flat, identifying why I'm feeling that way, identifying the trigger. What have I heard? What have I read? What have I seen that has possibly brought this trigger up? So really focusing on my self-awareness. Um, if you're feeling overwhelmed in a certain day, it's breaking your day down, morning, afternoon, and evening. In the morning, focus on something to do in the morning, like a sense of achievement. In the afternoon, you only think about the afternoon. You focus on something that will give you a sense of connection with yourself, with nature, with others. And in the evening, you only focus on the evening, something that will help you to relax. So I think sometimes the best coping mechanism is developing your own self-awareness and getting to know yourself and going back to basics,
I
going
love
back
that.
to sleep, water, and food, because you can't focus on yourself or other people if you're tired, if you're dehydrated, if you're hungry, if your own needs haven't been met, then it's very difficult to meet the needs of others.
Because you're in survival mode. So you can't do higher thinking or processing or healing, because if you're not filling your own cup, then you're asking yourself to do something that you don't have the energy or time for. And you keep pushing that down because you're trying to get that external validation and love so you can feel complete and whole. Is that what I'm hearing?
And then you become exhausted and overwhelmed and you crash.
Great. Great. Love this, Sarah. I could talk to you all day. So for those who might be in Ireland, hello, Ireland. What things do you have cooking that people might want to know about or participate in?
Yeah, so I've created a little journal,
Oh,
ideally a daily journal. So I'm in the process of getting that printed, and I am going to be working now next month at recording my workshop. So I'm going to have them on my website then for people to buy and to download, so they can just listen whenever it suits them. So
Great. Well, I will be looking out for it. I'm sure it will be fantastic. And I really appreciate you carving out some time, because this has been really fun. And I'm grateful that you were willing to participate.
Thank you so much again for asking me.
Sure, absolutely. All right. Please stay in touch, Sarah.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning into the D Spot. Find me, Dr. Dana McNeil, and my guests on social media using the links down below. Subscribe for new episodes weekly, and leave a comment letting us know how and if you can relate, or what topics you'd like us to cover next. See you next time, and don't forget, going to therapy is cool.